Right, welcome back to another episode of On the Ramp. And we have a special guest of us today, Tina Drayson from the award-winning CCM Garages. This is a very, very long overdue conversation, Tina. We've known each other for, I don't know how long now.
A few years.
4 or 5 years, possibly.
Yeah.
And we've always had conversations loosely at all the events and all the, the awards and whatnot that we've bumped into each other at, but we've never sat down and had a proper conversation. And it's something that I've always wanted to do. So I'm really looking forward to this. And Leo, our job today is to get as much information out of this wonderful person's head as possible, because there's a lot.
We'll give it a good go.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, and yeah, it's going to be challenging to get as much out as we possibly can. So I can't wait to see where this conversation's going to be going. So, without me doing your intro, Tina, do you want to just introduce yourself? And where we like to start is essentially how did you get into this wonderful trade of ours?
Well, thank you for the invitation, first of all. Pleasure to be here. My journey started about 25 years ago with CCM. Initially just on a part-time basis doing finance. That's my background. Fitted it in around having 4 children. When the youngest one started nursery school, I came back to work part-time with CCM, which was where my journey begins. And from there, it kind of progressed from part-time to full-time, finance to operations. And I think we just fall into that role, don't we? Of the more you do, the more you get given.
The better you are.
What did you do? You say you came into finance. What did you do pre-CCM then? Are you from a financial career?
So I was finance for a brick manufacturer company, actually.
Oh, okay, completely different.
Completely different. And I was there for a few years and then went on maternity leave and basically stopped working and had 4 kids.
Okay.
So, yeah, finance, numbers, most people will know if they know me, is my go-to. That's my thing. But then doing that with CCM and then realising that actually you have a lot more to offer and there's a lot more that you can do and a lot more that you can gain. You just naturally fall into doing more and more of the operation stuff. And over a period of years, it just expanded, really. I've been part of the company. We've grown together. Stuart and Barry, the owners, have been there, founded by Stuart 30 years ago. So, yeah, when I go back 25 years, we were in a porter cabin with a sort of, alongside a wooden building that was our workshop.
So you were right back at the humble beginnings of CCM, because that's not quite what CCM is today.
No, absolutely not.
And how long when were they founded, CCM then? When?
31 years ago.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, 31 years ago by Stuart. Just him in a garage, 1 ramp, and then he got an employee to come and help him, and Barry kind of had a separate business that was predominantly MOTs, did a huge amount of MOTs, trade and retail. And Barry and Stuart are actually old school friends. I think it was 2004 we amalgamated the 2 companies and became a limited company.
So when you joined the company then, you were just, because I assume it was a reasonably small company back then, how many staff, like what was the actual...
So CCM at the time probably had about 4 staff, and over at Barry's, which was called Mead Motors at the time, he probably had 4 as well. But
so they end up merged.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
they were 2
right.
separate companies, and I initially went in working for Barry at Mead Motors. But CCM at the time didn't do its own MOTs, so they used to take them to Mead Motors, which is now our Gatwick depot. So we used to have drivers running backwards and forwards between the 2. And it was, 2004, we amalgamated and merged together and become a limited company.
So the companies merged, but you still kept the 2 locations?
We had 2 locations, and then in 2019...
What was their what was their drive to merge? Because that's quite unusual.
Honestly, I don't know. I think it was one was very good at the MOT side of it, and Barry still does very much because he's also got MOT juice. If any of you guys have heard of MOT juice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's mega successful, isn't it?
Yeah, so Barry is very, very MOT focused, so much knowledge around the whole MOT process. And Stuart was very much more on the sort of mechanical side of it. So I think it just made sense for them to...
Yeah, sort of two different skill sets, I guess.
Yeah.
One fixing and one happy just doing the MOTs and...
Well, whatever their drive was, it's been the right decision.
Yeah,
worthwhile.
yeah.
So you joined as I'm assuming at that point,
Just for finance.
just for finance. So
Yeah.
were you doing just the bookkeeping or the accounting as well as the bookkeeping? Or
I was pretty much doing everything up to just having someone else, accountant, sign it off. So pretty much payroll, I was doing that as well for one site, and then I was doing it for both, and then obviously they merged, so that was a different process because we became a limited company. We had to get a new PAYE number and
reasonably complex process
yeah.
to go through. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in this accounting. Are you full time? Or are you part time?
I'm part time at the beginning.
Yeah. How old was the family around?
My family.
Yeah, you said you had 4 kids. Did you have 4 kids before you started?
Yeah. So I started with CCM when my youngest was 2.
Okay, right. So you're right in the thick of it then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, 6-year-old, and 8-year-old.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'm sure there are some people listening to this that can relate to that carnage. Yeah, mayhem. So you managed to hold down a finance job within exciting couple of companies that are merging and have got big aspirations. So I know that's not the role I know that role is still absolutely very close to your heart and you still oversee that, but you very quickly became, like you said, engaged in the other activities within the business. Did that start happening whilst you were still part-time, or did you you've obviously eventually gone full-time, but when did that change?
It's really hard to remember back that far, to be honest with you. I went full-time. When my youngest started school, I basically worked full-time school hours. So I finished at 3, went and picked up from school, and that was my day finished. And then probably full-time, as in literally 8 till 5, 5:30, when my youngest maybe was at secondary school. So he's 26 now, so, 15 years ago maybe.
Right, okay. And were you, up until the point you went full-time, were you still just focused on finance? Like, when did that change? Because now, you're...
Yeah, was it kind of you were just answering your phone call and helping out, and then randomly kind of started to just take on more duties and...
Yeah. I think it was just, you help out front of house. I probably even did it for periods of time when we had no staff, and I did it for 6 months. And then you kind of recruit and you step back again and go back to doing other stuff.
So almost doing it, not realising you were doing it.
Yeah. And then it's like anything, you get given more and the company grows. And Stuart at the time was still very much hands-on on the tools. So he was in the workshop a lot of the time. Barry was still very much involved in the MOT side of it and the testing side of it. So you just kind of naturally fall into looking after people, looking after operations, and it goes from there.
Was it it was obviously successful, but was it, compared to CCM's success today and the journey you've been on to get into CCM where it is now, what did the business look like 15 years ago?
Very disorganised, I would say, to be honest. I think, like a lot of garage owners, you think you're doing well and you're doing well, but you don't quite know how to take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. And we noticed that, I want to say maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and that was when we did a couple of things. We realised that we could be better at what we were doing. We knew we were making money, but we knew we could make more money. We knew we could be better. We knew we could be more organised, more structured. And we did a couple of things. We did some training with Andy Sava, who, if I'm honest, was totally brutal when he came in and done his garage visits. Mm-hmm. But that's what you need to hear. You don't need someone. You don't need someone to come in and go, "Oh yeah, you're doing a wonderful job." You need someone to come in and pull you apart and tell you where you're tripping over. And we also engaged the services of a business coach, who I still see to this day every week. Every Friday for 2 hours, I spend with him.
Really?
Yeah. And between those two things, I think we kind of hit a plateau, and we used both of those things really to kind of make the changes that we needed. And I think, even though we spoke about this earlier, the cliche of working on your business and not in it is just fundamental.
So did that come from a desire to wanting to basically to be a bigger business, earning more money, and that's why you kind of got those people in? Or was it because it was a bit of a mess and you didn't know what to do, or a bit of both?
I think a bit of both. I think you always want to grow, but you want to grow at the right pace. But you also want to have some structure and systems to what you're doing. And there's no point in adding an additional site if you've still got chaos at the sites you've already got.
So I think most people add the site and then worry about it. So
Yeah.
you've obviously got the calm and collective approach, and
Yeah. And I think, for Barry and Stuart, Barry in particular is very keen on acquiring new garages. And we have, 2019 we got our third garage. And what was great is, because we had our systems in place and our processes, you literally just pick them up and drop them. Train the staff to use them, make them aware of what they are, and off it goes.
Sounds like you've got a very good mix of. I did some business coaching with a guy called James Sinclair, and he's got his phrase E plus M equals S, and it's entrepreneurship plus management equals success. So it sounds like you've got Barry as the entrepreneur who wants to go out there and make it happen, but you've always been there to kind of like
Pick up the pieces.
we'll pull them back a little bit and kind of go, well, hang on a minute, we're not
Yep.
quite ready for that, but we'll put this in place. Whereas a lot of people don't have that probably at that stage, and they're going full out for the E, but not got the M at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, it was lots of changes, lots of hard work, a lot of effort from Stuart and myself about just things like having a vision. How many garages have a vision of where you want to be, what you want to achieve? And what is a vision? There's no point having a vision that you can achieve in 2 years' time. It's always got to be something that you're always striving to achieve. So we did that. Stuart put a lot of time and effort into coming up with what he believed would be a good vision for our business, which is very simple: to be the most professional, trusted and recommended for those we serve. That is our company vision. And then at the time we only had the 2 depots, so we got the team together. We did a bit of brainstorming with them. And we did this exercise where we said to them, we gave them all Post-it notes, and we said, we want you to write down what being professional means to you, trusted and recommended. And at the beginning, they were very kind of like, well, this is a bit weird. We've never done anything like this before.
what's this rubbish about?
But they soon got into it, and we put them up on a board. And actually, you find that everybody's feelings of being professional is the same. Everyone's feelings of being recommended is the same. So we did that at both sites, and then we de-duplicated, if you like, all the things that were very similar. And from that, we came up with our values.
Yeah. So it was aligned then.
It's very clever.
Yeah. So they've almost all come up with values themselves, and then they're already on board in values because they implemented them basically. And
Yeah. So that was quite a fun exercise to do. Like I said, everyone felt a bit awkward at the beginning, but
And how long ago was that when you did your values and things then?
probably 2018, I would say.
Right,
A few
okay.
years ago.
And do you, when you get new recruits in, do you kind of go through
Yeah.
things like that? Yeah.
They get a handbook, and they're in the front of our handbook. We go through it, what they are.
Is it a physical handbook or
Yes.
your digital and physical?
Yeah.
And what's your message with like how the values, how people, how does that affect the business day in, day out?
So I think the main benefit from it is when you find yourself in a sticky situation, if you can then look at the values that we have as a company, it kind of helps you to make the decision.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people assume that you don't need to worry about values unless you're some big, huge business. But actually, if you get that in from almost day one, it can be really important.
It's massive. It's massive. So, I mean, for a lot of garage owners, I think the top one's got to be honesty. So when you have a technician or a service advisor who's dealing with a customer that potentially could be a bit tricky, and you're thinking, do I tell them the truth? Do I make up some story? Do I tell them parts haven't turned up? We've all been there. We've all done it. Actually, just be honest. That's one of our values. we say to the customer, I'm really sorry, parts are here. We've had a mix-up in our diary. We haven't got around to doing it yet. And yeah, the customer might go, oh, you know, but you've been honest. Because if you lie, what happens, that customer might call back in half an hour time to tell you something, and someone else picks the phone up and goes, oh no, the parts have been here all day.
And then what?
And then what?
And this is the interesting thing, because often it could be the owners that might break them values. And I remember, I think John Batten said this to me when talking about it on the course, like using an analogy. So you've got like a starter motor for a car to be fixed, and you've told the customer the car will be done at the end of the day, and your technician drops on the floor, breaks it. The only one who can get replaced is dealer only, cost an extra 150 quid. What to tell the customer? And like most business owners might kind of try and come up with some sort of story to, you know, get the money or whatever. Whereas you as the owner have to stand by your own values, because the minute you break them, everybody else will break them underneath.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those situations will be coming into every garage once a week at least, won't they? That tricky.
And it's one of the biggest things for growth, because then if you do want to step back, again, it is very simple to kind of go, if someone says, I've got some options to this problem, do they fit within the values, and to go for it?
Yeah,
you don't have to ask, you don't have to get approval for every single thing. As long as they fit within the values, then you're happy to go and do.
Yeah.
We need to be better at that. You've got yours written down, haven't you?
We're just redoing all ours at the minute, and we're kind of we've had values and guiding principles for years, but we're going to, as we've grown, we want to have like a day off and get everyone together in like a hotel room and just really go through them all.
So what's your actual job role now? What is your job role, and what does a day look like for you at the minute?
Turn of the month will be all about numbers. I'll be updating, pulling off my reports, going through with the managers their details for their site, why this may be happening, why that may not be happening. Probably I will be keeping an eye on these numbers throughout the whole month, but at the end of the month, or when we turn the month, is when I'll sit down with the managers and speak to them.
And what are your main key KPIs that you'll look at then?
So
high level.
Key KPI, key performance.
So I think it depends. It depends on what we're focusing on at that particular time.
Yeah. Okay. So they'll change depending on what the area of improvement needs to be.
I love that approach. It's like a project-based data analysis approach, and I think it's massively underestimated.
But do you have a couple that you'll always?
I mean, I look at them every month, but there'll be certain areas, like we were discussing briefly earlier, about how many health checks are we doing.
Yeah.
Looking at estimates, how many are we converting? Not just numbers, but what's our conversion on our value? Because you could have, I think we raise about, between our 3 sites on a month, we probably raise estimates for about 180,000. Our conversion rate on number of estimates can be anywhere between 45 and 60%. But the value drops down to about 40. So we'll look at those, and we might potentially pull off some, find out why, what's happening, why are we losing on those?
So you're converting a higher amount of the lower value estimates.
Which kind of stands to reason, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because customers are going to say yes to a brake fluid and maybe no to something more substantial. I don't know.
But if you don't look at it, if you don't look at that data, you don't know if you're being too expensive. You don't know why you're losing those bigger jobs. Because if someone come to you to, I don't know, for gearbox repair, for example, which we do a lot of gearbox, mechatronic gearbox at two of our sites, they're not 600 quid. They're a few £1,000s.
Yeah.
Why are we not winning them?
Where's it going?
Where's it going? Are we too expensive?
In my journey with Garage Hub, I've definitely experienced, well, one of the main benefits that it will bring to garages is the ability to understand estimate authorisation rates. Because I think that a lot of garage owners will not have any idea whatsoever of what percentage work they're winning, what value they're quoting on, how many they're even quoting on, and where they will then look externally to get more work through the door. The answer can...
Yeah, as I say, often people's first point, I need more customers, without looking what's going on day in, day out. The amount we've been left on the table every day, if you looked and focused on that, is much easier than going out and acquiring some new customers.
And going back to what's right for the customer as well, it's like this vehicle health check. You know, I mean, I'm happy for us to discuss it today. It's not a topic we've covered yet, but it's quite a contentious subject to business owners. And some will think it's like not necessarily the right thing for the customer. But if there's, at the end of the day, if you've identified there is a safety issue on that vehicle, you have to communicate that to the customer. And by default, that is an estimate which is either authorised or not authorised. Yeah. So
I think the biggest problem of it is the different standards, because what one garage says needs doing, some won't. And we've all seen it, you know, from main dealer technicians through to people who've never been at main dealer, for example, or never had the proper training. There's such a wide difference in what's right and wrong, I feel, is one of the bigger problems.
But ultimately, it's our responsibility as a garage to provide the customer with that information, and they make the decision whether
definitely.
they have that work done. And it's simple things like timing belts. We have a duty of care to say to our customers, your timing belt's expired, you need to have it replaced. If they choose, it's too expensive, I don't want to have it done, and then that goes in a month's time, they're not going to come back to you and say, well, you didn't tell me.
they might.
You didn't warn me.
They might still, but yeah.
But if you've done that, if you've told them, if you've provided an estimate for that and they've declined it.
I think one of the biggest controversial ones are brake disc thicknesses. Because, again, I remember like 10 years ago, that bit of a lip on there, that'd be all right.
Yeah.
Now it's, you know, measure the disc, if it's below manufacturer
Below spec,
then you recommend them to be replaced. But I know that they'll probably, if you went to probably 10 different garages, that 5 might not even mention it and 5 will say you need to replace them.
I love the analogy, again, speaking about John Batten, that he uses, which is the grandma one. If you won't sell it to your grandma, don't sell it to the customer.
No.
Or on the flip side, if it was your grandma's car, you're going to have a check over your grandma's car? Of course you are. So if you're going to check your grandma's car, why are you not checking?
I always think if you have someone come around to look at a fault with your boiler at home, and they could have checked it around properly and told you about something that might need doing in 3 months but didn't, and it broke in 3 months, you'd be peed off.
Yeah,
Whereas if they kind of said, fix that fault, and by the way, you need this, but okay, crack on whilst you're here, get it done.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? Most drivers just want convenience. They don't want that extra trip to the garage. They certainly don't want to break down. Again, the battery analogy, it's like for us guys, if we have a flat battery at home, we can probably solve the problem.
Yeah.
But that young mum on a school run at 7:30 in the morning who's got to drop 2 kids off at 2 different schools, starts the car and the car's dead. It's like catastrophic. And it was James Dillon I heard say that. And as soon as he said that, it's like...
And even I think this for tyres, like if my car's tires are getting low, I can wait till the last second because I'm going to work every day and I can just get some chucked on at any point. Whereas a customer, but then you attach that same analogy when you're speaking to customers sometimes. I think that's the biggest problem, is that people will only sell what they feel the car needs, rather than, like you say, just our job is just to inform the customer of everything in a factual way and let them make the decisions.
And the other thing I think that is very difficult to get your head around is you'll build an estimate for something, and you personally, your service advisor may think, blimey, this is expensive. I can't add that on, I can't add that on. It's not our choice. What's expensive to us might not be expensive to someone else. And we just need to tell them.
We've just a customer approved an Vectra B, 2.5 V6. I think it's a £5,000 or £6,000 repair. And the car's probably worth a few £100. It needs head gaskets doing and heads and things. And so naturally, somebody's like, no, you don't need doing. But to them,
they might be sentimental.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But again, what are they going to have to spend to buy a new car even? And they probably don't even like new cars or something. And I think that's where online health checks work. And then because customers are going to look through a list and pick some amber things that the advisor might have been too scared to mention because they're already up to £1,000 or something.
Yeah.
But we've had a bit of issue with online. I'm a massive fan of displaying information to a customer in a way that they can consume it. So I'm all over that. But you still need that coaching. Sometimes you need to be able to coach the customer through. So in that example, that customer might be the type of customer who can make a really analytical decision and think, right, okay.
They'll be blue.
Fine. Yeah, we'll just be quite colour profiling. But then you might get the customer who see that and just think, what are these guys doing? if they've not had that phone call to sort of
Yeah, yeah.
coach them through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
A
mean,
combination of both, I think, isn't it? That helps.
Yeah, and think like brake fluid. No customer rings up and says, "Oh, can you change my brake fluid for me?"
Yeah.
And if you said to most of your customers, "Oh, have you had your brake fluid changed?" they wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about. So if you've just sent them a reminder or sent them an estimate or it's on their health check brake fluid without any kind of explanation,
Yeah.
it means absolutely nothing. So they're going to go, "Well, I'm having that done."
Yeah.
How do you like continually? Because again, it's a place that we're in with Lindlers is making sure that this is fully understood across front of house, and it's like continual training or continual coaching. It's like we're right in the midst of this at the minute of trying to get this right. What do you do?
I think it is communication from every angle. So what we've done at CCM recently, very recent project, is to split our booking sales team and our estimators away from front of house. It's had its teeth and problems. It's not perfect, but we're working on it. And it's allowed us to, the sales team, if you like, which is our people who make their bookings and upsell the service in and all the other work, and the estimators that are putting them together, it's given us consistency across the 3 depots, but it's making them very efficient at that particular part of their role.
What is your structure then? And so how many technicians have you got? And yeah, what's your kind of structure?
So I have one site that's got 4 techs and 1 front of house, and the manager there is a technician but doesn't carry out work unless it's absolutely necessary.
So more like a bit of a foreman. Or
Yeah,
sort of,
so
or they
he'll
cover
kind
or-
of organise the guys, organise the workshop loading, any problems, deal with complaints or any sort of comebacks or anything like that. So he's always there as a backup to the front of house if she gets a bit overwhelmed. The other site, I have the same, but I have 5 technicians, but the manager is a technician, so he splits his time between being in the workshop and then helping in the office. And then the other site, I have 5, 6 technicians, 1 front of house, and again, the manager is non-productive, if that's the right word to use. I get told off for using that word.
Yeah.
So he's very hands-on in supporting the service advisors as well. And then we have this new hub where I've got 4 members of staff. 2 of them are literally answering the phone, taking bookings, upselling at the point of booking. So we want to try and increase our ratio of our retail MOT customers to have a service as well. Because the national average, I looked into this when I was doing some data digging 6 months, 12 months ago. The national average for a customer to have an MOT and a service every year is 42%, which is really low. I thought was really, really low. So I want to be able to, when a customer rings up and says, "Oh, can I have an MOT? You've sent me a reminder," they can see on the system that we haven't done a service. I want them to be able to spend the time with the customer, upsell the service, recommend the service, build the service based on what's required for the vehicle, age and mileage.
How's that going? How successful are you finding that at the minute?
Pretty good, actually. Pretty good. And then what we're doing is as soon as they come off the phone and they've made that date, that appointment, they're building that service based on what's required, and it gets emailed to them within 20 minutes of booking.
Right, okay.
With the message that, have a look. If you want to modify it, it's too expensive. We don't say if it's too expensive, but if you want to modify it or amend it, give us a call and we can have a chat about it. We also try, so most service plans, if you pick them off Haynes Pro, Autodata, whatever you use, your brakes are a visual inspection. Now, you guys will know that some vehicles, you can't actually do a really good visual inspection on brake pads. Inner pads are a little bit awkward to get to. So we're trying to say to the customer that on your service, your brake is just a visual inspection. Do you want us to carry out a full brake service check where we remove all the wheels and we check and measure? Obviously, if they do, it's more time, it's an extra cost. So it's trying to upsell at the point of booking rather than wait until the vehicle's on site and then trying to squeeze things
Yeah.
into your diary because somebody said, oh yeah, can you do that while you've got it?
I guess the main thing is with having those people in that role, you can really focus on honing in on that. Whereas when the advisor's doing a bit, it's, you know, oh, by the way, can we now do this? It's like, well, how am I going to fit that in? So you've...
Yeah.
And so there's two people that are doing all your inbounds, all the quotes. So
you have two people doing all the inbound calls for all 3 depots. And then there's another 2 people that basically spend their whole day doing estimates and following up on estimates.
and what about who will price the health checks then as they come through on the day?
So if they come through on the day and it's red, it's done by the service advisor. If it's amber, it will get sent to the estimators. They will raise an estimate for it. And the system that we use, you can then just enter a follow-up date. So if, for example, the health check comes up and says, you know, we need to maybe revisit the brake pads in 6 months' time, they'll do an estimate for new brake pads and they'll put a follow-up date in 6 months.
So presumably part of their day starts with looking if there's anything to follow up today.
Yep.
Okay.
And what background are those people? Were they service advisors or?
Yeah, they've both been service advisors previously. One's been workshop controller previously, so they've got quite a lot of knowledge over the years.
I think that coming back to this whole service of MOT thing, again, it's what you mentioned earlier. It's about just making sure the customer is aware of the choice, because any garage owner listening to this should 100%. They might have a diary full of MOTs. They might be doing 8 MOTs a day. In fact, I'm going to guess that they are. And if they're not, they're going to be doing in September. And they might only have 2 services booked in, and they might not even be tied to those MOTs. And providing they're not doing a load of trade MOTs, which I know is another topic that you like to speak passionately about, they should be asking the customer, when did you last have the car serviced? Did you know you should have your car serviced, you know, at minimum once every 2 years, but ideally once every year, depending on what vehicle it is. And they'll find that if they check service history and time of belt history on every MOT that they do and present that information to the customer,
That's a lot of work.
But it's information the customer has to know. They're relying on you as the garage to educate them on what that is. Absolutely.
And the other thing as well that comes in, if you go back 25 years, 20 years, how many automatic gearboxes were there?
Yeah, none.
Hardly any. And now if you look at the car park, how many automatic gearboxes?
Majority.
Probably.
Yeah, and it's only going to go that way, isn't it? So they can keep going.
Or it's going to...
So how many? So how many garage owners are advising their customers that your gearbox needs its own service?
And if you're working on lots of different brands of cars, it is a time-consuming job to go in and check every one, and you could so easily be caught out. And if you service a car and don't turn back a cam belt, don't turn back an automatic service that's due, and something goes wrong, then there's no reason why you can't be held accountable for that.
I agree.
But this is all work that we can easily win. We just need to generate the estimates. We need to educate the customers, make that phone call.
It's typically the higher efficiency, higher margin, cleaner work as well, isn't it?
Yep.
Preventative maintenance, better for the customer, better for the garage. So it's a big opportunity. It's a really interesting. We've kind of got a similar sort of setup to you. We're a bit heavier at the branch in advisors, and we're a bit lighter at central, considering how many branches there are. But we've tried to centralise a lot of those roles. But I do think that coming back to your core values of making sure all the staff understand what you are trying to communicate to the customer, it's...
Again, if all these projects, they're all within your values. So no one can go, are you doing that for a wrong reason? They all align to your values, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. So just going back to what we were saying very briefly about the number of customers that have a MOT and a service done every year, this really intrigued me as to why. I had garages that were having 70% and another one was only 38%. And I couldn't understand why, because these garages were geographically 3 miles apart. So why was one so high and one so low? And I got my colleague Hannah to do a little bit of a survey. And my take-ins, and I know everyone can interpret data differently, but the results of the survey, my interpretation of them is the customer base at the site that had a high percentage were generally over 55, or they had a higher number of customers that responded that were over 55. So they're of that generation maybe where they've got more disposable income, and just every year I have an MOT and service done. Whereas the site that had a very low, they had a higher number of people between the age brackets of 25 and 45. So young families probably didn't have as much disposable income.
You're all in considering that cost is going to be coming up.
Because someone's got to tell them. A new car owner, maybe, I don't know what the average age of a new car owner is these days, but I'm sure it's like early 20s probably now. You don't know a car needs X, Y, and Z. Do you know what I mean? You don't buy your first car thinking, right, I must get it serviced, I must do brake fluid. Like, someone's got to tell you. And after 10 years of going to a garage, you kind of, you know, you learn, don't you, what's required. So I'm sure comes back to the education piece, doesn't it? As garage owners, you have to educate your customer base.
Definitely. And the other thing that we picked up on the other site was, so we asked them various questions. The household income across the 3 depots, or the 3 depots' customer base, was actually very similar. There wasn't a lot. It wasn't like one area was much more affluent than the others. But there was one area that had a very high percentage of customers that had 3+ vehicles per household. So they weren't doing services on every single car, perhaps because 2 of them were maybe teenagers driving or students, university students. So the parents were perhaps getting theirs serviced.
Yeah.
Was this just a survey that you did just to your own customer base?
Yeah,
then?
we just did it to our own customer base because we were trying to get some idea of why we had so much discrepancy in the numbers of...
What did you use to do it? Being like really specific.
MailChimp.
Just a MailChimp survey?
Monkey, actually.
Survey Monkey.
Survey
Yes,
Monkey,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, Hannah just did a set of questions, and obviously it's totally anonymous, so you don't know who's responded. And we had quite a good turnout of responses, actually. Quite surprising.
So what are you doing about it?
So it was from doing that survey that we kind of realised that actually the younger generation, probably like you say, we need to educate them. So we started doing a lot more of asking, literally asking, I'm having an MOT because I know I legally have to have it done. Do you realise you need to have a service done on your car? Can we do that while your vehicle's here with us?
And have you created like a sales script, like been through training with the front of house?
We've spoken about it with front of house. We don't really have a script for it, but they are all aware that it's something that they need to do. And I actually covered at one of our sites that was quite low. I actually covered front of house for about 3 days. I think we didn't have anyone to cover for holiday, so I just went over there and did it. And I purposely set myself the task to ask to see how many I could win.
One or more?
No, it wasn't. It was about 70% actually.
Was it really?
Over the course of the week
how
or 4
much
days.
more quality work is that into that workshop just by asking that question?
People
we assume that customers know that if they want a service. Like, so if they're not asking, we're assuming that they don't want it. Don't we?
Yeah.
I mean, we've been through the same exercise and seen great results. And anyone listening to it, if you've got an MOT bay, please just ask your customer, would you like a service with that MOT? Or go one step further and check the history, check the interval. But even just asking, you're going to get people say yes, or at least then ask why. And then, we all know cars need servicing. I think that I'd like you to just briefly speak about trade MOTs whilst we're in the topic of, because it's a contentious area.
Okay, so I know someone has to do them. I'm not disputing that. But they need to be done at £54.85. We don't do trade rates. We do them at one of our depots, and Barry and Stuart will hate me for saying that, but I have tried to engineer them out, but they just keep coming back. One of them is understandably because they are opposite us. And when we first said to them a while ago that we're going to still do them for you, but you're going to be paying £54.85, they said, oh, I don't know about that. We're only going to do 1 or 2 with you a day, and we'll take the others somewhere else where we can get them cheaper. And we were like, that's fine. That's exactly what we were hoping they would do. Yeah. But what's happened is it's too convenient. They don't even have to drive it anywhere. We go and get it from their car park. So over a period of time, they've actually started coming back, and we're probably doing 4 a day for them now.
How many tests will you do a day at that site?
So we have one tester who does MOTs all day, and he works from 8 to 5:30 and literally does MOTs all day. And the second tester probably spends half of his day doing testing.
You must be doing 12 a day.
Yeah,
roughly.
easy.
Yeah.
And then when we get to September, October, it is likely to be completely full.
Yeah.
We used to do loads of trade MOTs, and it was our now ops director came from Mercedes background, and he started at one of our busiest branches, and we did loads of trade MOTs. And you have relationships with these people. Like in the trade, they're your trade friends, you know. And back then, for us, I wasn't involved in any community. So the only garage owners that you speak to are the ones that you do a trade MOTs for. And I remember when he said we need to, you know, they got first slot, they got it discounted, they got it prioritized. And he was like, no, we're knocking this on the head.
This will interest you, Alex. I did some data on it. And we did some trade MOTs at the other depot that we don't do trade MOTs for. And we were doing about just under 100 MOTs a month at 40 quid. When you work out the percentage of your actual sales for the month, it worked out that we were doing 6%. A third of our work was for 6% of our sales. Because the amount of jobs we were doing, if you look at the jobs, his MOTs took up a third of the jobs. So when you consider every time you have to create a job, invoice it,
All of
the admin, it was a third of the work for 6% of the sales.
That's a really interesting way to look at it, actually.
Yeah.
So, and like you say, they want priority slots.
Yeah.
They want the morning slots so they can get the repairs done. They want the retests free. So I kind of engineered them out, if the right word.
And I think garages can feel busy. And when you feel busy, you don't look at what the core problem might be. And the core problem might be that some of the customers are low value customers, like trade customers. And it stops you from looking for retail customers, doesn't it?
I think it's being scared of losing that revenue. And then, but most people that do stop it, they instantly fill it up. But you just see it as in like, oh, I'm getting $2,000 a month from them or whatever it is.
That was my exact opinion.
I don't think people look at the value. I think they look at the jobs. I think people
Quantity.
are looking. They're looking at. Well, I get 4 jobs a day from them.
Yeah.
But when you actually look at the value of your profit on those particular jobs, it's nothing.
Yeah.
So we allow 40 minutes per MOT, but 45 minutes is about an average. So just say, for example, you're charging them £40 for a 45-minute job. If my labour rate's £100, I could be selling that 45 minutes for £75.
Yeah. And retaining a customer that's going to come back to you.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, you're losing all the opportunity as well. Because you're not going to service a trade MOT, are you?
No. You're not doing any repairs, you're doing MOT.
Yeah. It's funny. We see it quite frequently in Garage Hub. I'll sit down and I have like a Power BI session with a garage owner, and one of the things I go straight to is trade customers and account customers and look at the actual labour rate of those customers, and then oh yeah, we do 5 MOTs a day for these guys.
You know what's weird is I just thought this now is so people happy do trade, but then there's a myth that one link is rubbish and no one should ever do it, whereas you can actually make money out of that.
Yep. One link I think is one of the most misunderstood.
Yeah.
And even from I've not got a good experience with one link, but I know some people who are having a very good time with one link. But it comes down to hearing it, doesn't it? When we changed
knowledge.
It's knowledge. When Ed came in and said we're not doing trade MOTs anymore, I fundamentally disagreed at every level, but put trust in someone else to do it, and then never looked back, really. And it got to the point we were charging the garage more for initially we just put the prices up, and we were charging them more than what they were charging retail.
Yeah.
And they were swallowing it. I mean, they've gone elsewhere now, but obviously, we're talking like 6-7 years ago. But no, I just thought it'd be interesting to bring up trade MOTs.
You've also then got the additional thing that a lot of garage owners don't realise, that you cannot charge more to their customers for that MOT at exempt. If I'm charging, I mean we don't, but if the garages, for example, that we were charging £40 for an MOT, they can't charge their customers £54.85 at exempt. They're not allowed to do that.
No.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do, don't they?
A lot of them do, because they don't realise.
And
I know someone who's been caught though and been done and back paid.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, honestly.
And the other thing is you've got the pressure if it's car sales. It's like, oh, is that after fail? Do you have to put that as advisory and all that sort of stuff? And you end up then kind of, going down that road, which isn't a good place to go down at all, is it?
No.
And like I said, it stops you because you feel busy. It stops you from looking elsewhere. And I think like the biggest trap that people fall into with low value, high volume work is you are that busy for, and it doesn't let you step back and think, right, that work's gone now. Where can I go to fill that space with high quality, high revenue work? And people don't focus on marketing. I mean, the amount of garages who just don't do marketing, full stop, because they're busy. But when you actually look at the makeup of the work that they're doing, it's not necessarily busy with the right work. No. So I'm sure there's people listening who do a lot of trade MOTs, and hopefully that's makes them question it, essentially.
Look at the numbers.
One of the things that I want to get into a conversation with you with is all around leadership, and I've heard you speak about this before, and I think it's a topic that is not very often spoke about in the industry. If you just look at the way people become a leader in this industry, or they end up being a business owner, like you mentioned before, Leo, a lot of garage owners are in essentially reasonably paid jobs with people around them doing, but they've never had any leadership training or never necessarily worked under a good leader either. And it's something that, it's challenges that I have myself, and I'm sure, Leo, it's challenges that you have yourself, but you've done a lot of work around leadership, you've had a lot of coaching around leadership, and I think that it would just be a good topic for us to sort of get into. I think for me, where I'd like to start, and this is something that I'm really trying to improve myself at the minute, is like identifying problems within the business or identifying areas of improvement, and then trying to implement change to essentially either not necessarily solve the problem, but make it better. Is this an area that, within your job role, I'm sure that part of what you do is to identify the problems, and I'd be really interested to learn how you identify problems and how you look to solve those problems.
Yeah, and also what you feel the good qualities of a leader.
So my first thought would be, you need to ask yourself, and you guys can ask yourself this: are you approachable?
It's funny, it's painful, because if I listen to feedback, no, I'm not. But I'm so blind to it, like painfully blind to it, because I like to think I am approachable. But even people I'm close to will tell me I'm not necessarily approachable.
And credit to you for being honest about it, because everybody...
I don't believe it. It's complete bollocks.
Everybody that I ask that question to, they go, yeah, I'm approachable.
I think it's almost a double thing, because there's being approachable and there's how does that actually look in a day. So like you might be an approachable person, but in a day, how does somebody actually go and approach you? Do you see what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
I think approachable comes in different forms as well. So the reason why I know that I'm not... I think approachable, you immediately think, will they come and speak to you? But actually, I think approachable is always that when you are speaking to them, are you getting the truth as well? Because I think that people will speak to me, or I'll be in meetings, or I'll be having a conversation with someone, and then I'll hear from someone else that actually the way that they're feeling or what their thoughts are is not necessarily what you think based on what they've told you. And I think that
is a big problem, I think, in general, is that trying to actually extract how people truly feel is quite a hard thing. So you got any advice or tips on that?
Are you approachable?
Again, I feel like I'm an approachable person, but I know there's probably barriers for people will say, because I'm always busy or whatever, how do people actually come and approach me?
So to go back to the question about how you identify problems that are going on and how you fix them, you have to be open and approachable, because you're going to hear from your staff. It's your team that are going to highlight these things to you, because you can't be everywhere and do everything. So you need to be in a position where somebody from one of your depots, somebody that can feel comfortable coming to you with an issue, whether that would be something work-related, whether that would be something process-related, whether it would be something colleague-related. We all have clashes with personalities and things. I think that's the first step, because, like I said, you can't be everywhere and you can't do everything. And a lot of the problems that arise, you hear from your team. And the next step from that is just moving on to, again, we discussed this very briefly earlier, is being there in the moment for that person when they do come and speak to you. So listening to understand, not to respond.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really hard skill to learn. It's not easy. I'm not perfect at it by any means, but I'm always working on it. And there are ways that you can tell if someone's listening to you. So if you've had a member of staff that, first of all, if they've got an issue with a colleague, say, for example, that they feel needs addressing, that's a really big, big thing for them to pluck up the courage to come in, speak to you about that. And then when they come into the office, if you're just dismissing them, oh, just give me 5 minutes, I need to finish this, or I'm just looking at my phone, or that's not giving a good message.
And also stop further feedback.
Absolutely. And then when you do have that conversation, you need to do it and actively listen. So there are many ways that you can do it. Is you need to make eye contact with these people. You need to actually lean into them so that it shows they feel that they're being heard. You can't be looking at your watch. You can't be looking at your phone when it pings, or your email box when it pings up. You can't be looking out the window at something going on behind their back. You've got to actually physically give these people your attention. And throughout the conversation, you're not talking. The only thing you might be saying is reiterating what they're saying to clarify that you've understood what the issue is. Because that way, when that person walks away, they're going to feel heard. Whatever the issue may be, whether it's a work-related issue, whether it's a process, whether it's a customer, whatever the issue is that they brought to you, if you really seriously sit down and listen to what they have to say and you've reiterated it back so you've understood what they're saying you, that person's going to walk away and feel really, really heard. So the next time there's an issue, they're going to feel comfortable coming to you.
It's like a deep cultural change, that is, isn't it? Is that something that you'd say you've always been reasonably okay at, or is it something that you're super conscious of?
It's something that we've worked on as a business for a number of years. Something I do a lot of work on personal development myself, and I'm very conscious of. It's not just the listening skills, it's the language you use. So, example, let me try and give you an example. So just go back to health checks. Just say you're a garage and you don't implement health checks. And it's something that you want to do. As a business owner, in your head, you've kind of got, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And there's this whole concept around, oh, we need to get the team involved because they're buying into it. So you get a meeting together and you sit everyone down and you basically sit there and you tell them what you're going to do. Does that actually get buy-in from your team?
Of course it doesn't.
It doesn't, no. So what you have to do as an owner is you have to basically sit down with your team and you need to say, this is what I'm trying to achieve. And you need to explain your why. Why am I trying to achieve what I'm trying to achieve? So we're trying to give the customer as much information about the safety of their car by doing these health checks. How do you guys as a team think we can work this out? And then you sit back and shut up and you listen. Because they're the ones at the front of they're the ones on the floor, they're the ones doing the work, they're the ones that are going to know the little hiccups, the little things that might go wrong. And it may be that you don't actually change your mind of what you do, but they will feel listened to. They will feel like they've had a voice, you've heard what they've had to say.
It's like a consultative approach.
Yeah.
We started a little while ago, and I'm next in line for it, is 360-degree feedback.
Fabulous.
Next in the firing line.
Next in the firing line. I've had to postpone it.
Until you're ready. How do you balance because I imagine in your job role, what's your actual job title?
Oh, I got many job titles, you know.
Depends what day of the week.
What's on your business card? What's on your email signature?
Operations director.
So you're busy.
Yeah.
How do you strike the balance? I'm guessing I'm asking this purely for selfish reasons here. How do you strike the balance between being overly approachable and being over approached?
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
That's a good question, actually. Yeah.
So, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So I have a manager at each site, and my conversations and my meetings with them, we will do our numbers, we'll go through our data, we'll go through things that we could be doing better and things like that. And then they'll have their say of things that they're struggling with. I've got this customer that's made a complaint, I've got this member of staff that, and I will coach them. So I will say to them, what do you think you need to do? And 9 times out of 10, they know they just need that reassurance.
Seeking validation,
Yes.
isn't it?
And it's little things like,
and praise, I guess, as well, isn't it?
yeah, and it's again, it comes back to language. So just say, for example, you've had a customer that's come back because there's been an issue. And you've heard through the grapevine that this car's back because there's been a problem of some work you've done 2 days ago. If you go over to the technician that's working on it and you go, why is that back? What are you doing? Why is that back? That instant language is putting that technician on the defensive. Because when you say why, it's almost like an accusation. But if you were to go over there and go, what are your thought processes about why this has come back? It opens up a conversation rather than makes an accusation. And it's just about the language that you use.
You've got to be very level-headed, haven't you? When you're running if you're in the mix of the day and things are going wrong.
It's so difficult, isn't it? It's so difficult when you're internally frustrated because, like, you know, running a garage, you can be punched in the face 20 times a day.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking about a smaller business and you're running around doing just on an MOT and then you answer the phone and then recovery truck turns up with a car on it that was in yesterday. You kind of instantly can see red and yeah.
So. It's hard. It's not easy. It's really, really hard. But it has such a difference on your team because they feel respected and they feel valued. And you know, another easy example is you hear lots of people on forums complaining about, my staff are always on their mobile phones. Well, what happens if you're a business owner and you walk past somebody and they're on their phone, or there's 2 of your techs laughing at something, and you walk past and you're like fuming about it, and then 2 days later they're doing it again? And what happens is you're not addressing it.
Yeah.
And by not addressing it, you're actually giving silent consent.
Yeah.
And your staff are thinking, well, he never said anything last time, so I'm all right. But all that's happening is you're stewing and it's festering and it's getting completely out of control, and then you explode. Whereas actually, all you needed to have done the first time was say, guys, this isn't really the time to be on your mobile phones.
But that's one of the biggest things, especially as you're growing in the business. I remember even not wanting to address an actual return to workshop job that you kind of go like, oh, if I mention this to him, he's going to, you know, you end up just fixing it and get rid of it. And I remember not even I hated any confrontation whatsoever.
But it doesn't have to be confrontation.
Yeah.
It's about using the language correctly so that you get the result.
Well, I guess it's the thought of having an even slightly awkward conversation.
Yeah.
It's easier just to avoid it, isn't it? But like you said, it breeds.
It just
slowly breeds. And
bad culture, yeah. Ultimately,
we're in the like right in the midst of this problem. Is that because of the size and the number of staff, when we're sat discussing problems, there is a large volume of problems. But when you break them down to the individual people, it could be one problem from one person and one problem from another person. You almost feel like. And again, if I just speak about yesterday's meetings, we had some bad feedback about a phone call or the way something was dealt, and I was like, has anyone even told the member of staff, or we just all sat here complaining about it? And it's like, more often than not, you'll complain about it, you'll try and address like the bigger picture, but the feedback never ends up getting back around to that individual member of staff. And it's like, we were actively discussing yesterday, what is the best approach? Is it a coaching approach? Is it a training approach? Have you got to give them feedback? You know,
start with an approach.
You've got to start with an approach, haven't you? But it can almost, as a business owner, I think it can almost feel paralyzing that you're in this, like I said, you're in the busy day, and just think about a business that's owner operated, perhaps 2 service advisors, 4 technicians, like the very average garage. In the heat of a day, you hear someone come off a phone that you've not necessarily agreed with the way that they've dealt with it, but is now the time to address that? But when is the time to address that? And it's so easy just to let something.
And I guess if you don't, you could argue it's like if we run a business with no data, you don't know what's going on, then how do you improve? And if these people are making errors and no one's telling them about
How
it,
do they
they're
know?
never going to improve.
Yeah.
We've had massive changes in sort of mainly management just by making sure we sit down every month and have the conversations with people. And
So you're praising
huge.
all front of house staff?
No, that's it. We're doing it with myself. We do it, but for myself, we have a manager end of month review meeting. And so now, and the other thing is, I used to have this. You'd kind of like see something, you make a note of it, and you go, right, on Monday, I'm going to have a word about that. Monday comes around, you're like, I can't be asked.
There's another fire to put out, isn't there?
Whereas now, like, we'll pull it into the notes for the meeting, and then, like, we know we're all sitting down to have that conversation. Because there's nothing more awkward than, like, rings me up, well, can I have a word? And straight away, it's like, this is unusual.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's set that there's that meeting, they know that on that day, they get their chance to voice their frustrations and that they're going to have someone come back and talk about the wins and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Just having them set is a huge thing. But then the other thing is making sure that, because I was bad at this, making sure that actually happen. You get around to meeting day, it's like, I'm busy, I could do this, I could do that. But the minute you start to postpone them, again, it just loses the authenticity of that meeting then. If everyone thinks like, when that comes around, it'll get cancelled or...
Yeah, well, you're setting that precedent, aren't you?
Yeah.
So do your managers have appraisals with the techs? Is that something that they
do? They do one-to-ones with the techs. I do one-to-ones with... I have monthly meetings with
each manager.
Each manager.
How often are they appraising the staff?
I kind of... probably about once a quarter, and again, it probably sometimes rolls over, and it probably doesn't get done every quarter.
Yeah, we're the same.
Some
we aim for
managers
every quarter, but it could easily be 4 months later or something. Yeah.
And the other thing that I kind of try and teach and coach the managers, if you like, is when you have these one-to-ones with your team, you need to listen. That's what it's about. It's about listening. I'm not expecting you to come up with a solution for these, because some of the solutions, they're not there. Some of the complaints, if you like, that your team might have, there isn't a solution for at this point in time that you might need to...
Yeah, or they are what they are.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we worry too much about trying to fix every single bit of feedback, whereas sometimes, like, unfortunately, that is
how it is.
Yeah.
But what you do need to do is you need to go back to them and tell them that. Because otherwise what happens
They're waiting.
is you'll do your one-to-one again in, say, 3 months' time. And that technician might turn around and go, well, we spoke about this last time and you've never done anything about it. And like you say, Leo, it might be that there's nothing to do, but you need to report that back and say, I listened to what you had to say, I heard what you had to say, but it is what it is and I can't do anything about it.
Suck it in, lumpy.
Yeah.
But at least they know where they are.
But they know. Whereas if you don't give them that feedback...
Yeah, one of my tasks is we want to have like a pipe drive system for this, because that's one of my biggest concerns is we get this feedback and we're on to the next thing and we don't have a chance to implement it. So we want to kind of have like a pipe drive system where on the one-to-one someone said, we need this doing, and it kind of goes in as a two action and then literally follow it through.
So a lot of your role then, it sounds like you're doing a lot of coaching yourself.
Of coaching, yeah.
I think that's something that we really, really need to improve on. Yeah. Would you say that you are approachable? Are you there where you want to be?
I am approachable. I would say that I am.
Okay.
I would say that I am.
And that's
I'm also,
throughout the whole business?
Yeah, and I'm also very good at pushing back when I need to. So when the managers will come to me and they might have an issue with a member of staff or a particular job or a particular customer, I will sit there and coach them and say, well, what do you want? What do you want the outcome to be? What do you feel we should be doing in this scenario? Because I can't be making all the decisions.
No.
They have to...
And they won't learn otherwise, will
Exactly. And yes, they know they can escalate it to me if it gets out of hand or it gets too big. And that they know they have that option. But the general everyday stuff, I just sit them down and say, well, what do you want to happen? What do you want the outcome to be? How do you want to address it?
Are Barry and Stuart, are they like involved in the day-to-day stuff still, or you kind of got...
Stuart is still very hands-on when he's needed.
You mean in the workshop?
In the workshop.
Yeah.
He tries not to be, but he just naturally gets drawn into it.
I think he loves it though, doesn't he?
He does. That's when he gets his flow.
He's passionate.
Is when he's in it. And Stuart has so much technical knowledge that very often they just need someone to bounce ideas or scenarios and problems off to share, because someone else might look at something slightly different.
Yeah, like a technical director sort of.
And Stuart's also in the process of putting a matrix together.
I've seen this.
to be able to identify the right type of work, the right type of vehicle, the right type of customer, and the right technician to do that work. So that's a bit of a project that he's working on, and it's pretty impressive.
It's really cool.
It's pretty impressive what he's doing. So he's got that ongoing as well. He's got his hands in lots of different things that he's doing.
MOT juice is massive, isn't it?
Well, Barry does MOT juice.
Yeah.
Barry's probably not as much hands-on with CCM, really. He comes in and has a blast and has his input for a week, and then we might not see him for a month. So
Yeah.
And
So-
other than your business coach, have you done any self-development yourself for learning these mentoring skills?
yes. So I've done online coaching training.
Read every book.
Read every
Listened
book.
to every podcast.
Read every book, listened to as many podcasts as I can. I've done a lot of business training, so I've done all of Andy Saver's business training, which I think, to be honest, are absolute gold dust.
On that point, because business training is something that we speak about a lot, how important is that? So let's say you've got a garage owner, and again, reading books. We speak, listen to audiobooks, listen to podcasts.
I think books is huge, isn't it? Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can kind of, there's some really successful, famous people out there which you would never get a chance to speak to, but you can go and read a book that they've written for hours and hours for 10 quid.
And some books have fundamentally changed my view on business. So it's like reading books, business, self-development. I think for any business owner, it's more than critical. And you take, and
If you want to develop
if you want to
yourself,
self-develop, yeah.
Yeah. But you need to. I think the reading the book and doing the training and attending the classes is the easy bit. What's hard is being able to reevaluate what you've learned and implement that into your business. And one of the things I did do that has been immense in what we've done at CCM, very time consuming in my own time because I did it in my own time, was Lean Six Sigma.
Yeah.
I did my green belt in Lean Six Sigma, which is just, when you look at it and when you read about it and you see it, it's blindingly obvious. But we
some
don't
of
do
them simple things that, yeah.
We just
Do you want to just give a
don't
quick summary
do
to the listener? Because if you've not read books and stuff, you probably
So Lean
they're
Six
probably
Sigma.
thinking you're like a karate.
I wish.
Yeah.
It is literally about addressing processes and taking waste out of your processes and being aware of what adds value to your customers. That's kind of like a short version of it, if you like. And I think what we do is we implement something and then we get complacent about it. So just to give you an example, and I know lots of good garages do this, they have boxes to put their parts in. So your parts turn up, you've got boxes, I don't know, you may label them 1 to 20.
Like pigeonholes, sort of.
Yeah, pigeonholes,
It's like
yeah.
what we've got downstairs.
Great
You're going to
idea.
tell me I'm doing it all wrong now, and I can't
no,
wait.
okay.
Yeah.
But what happens is we do that, we think, yeah, great. And then we forget about it.
Yep. That's what we've done.
And we don't think to ourselves, could we actually make this any better? So what we've trialled at one of our sites is the service advisors receive the parts in, they go into the pigeonholes, the boxes, whatever you want to call them. It goes on the job. Those parts are in box A. So when a tech gets that job, he knows it's key number 1, it's box A. So what we've now done at Gatwick is each technician's got their own box. And at the end of the day, the manager will put his parts for the next day in his own box. So when they come in the morning, they just got to pick their box up.
For
the
all
parts
their
are there.
jobs.
But all their jobs are in that one box.
That's a totally different way of looking at it.
And now my pigeonholes are empty for the next batch to come in.
So that's
So is
what's-
that spark from running out of space of pigeon boxes?
No, just looking at whether we can make it even leaner than it already is. It's little things like...
And that's, of course, has meant that you have to be even more organised on the diary loading as well, because you can't do that unless you're organised.
But what it also does is it ensures the day before you're checking your parts
Yeah.
for the next day. So it's little things like your key cupboard might be in one location, and then your floor mats and your seat covers are in a different location. and your parts are in a different location. So your technician got to go from A to B to C to get all the bits. Have them all in the same place.
Yeah.
So we have them literally seat covers, floor mats, turn around, your parts and your keys.
Is this something that Andy speaks about on his courses as well?
Andy Sava, yes. Yeah. And it was him that inspired me to do the Lean Six Sigma, because when you start reading about it, I started reading about it first and got really intrigued into what it was all about, which was when I then went and did the actual learning for it.
The last topic I want to speak about is women in the motor trade, right? But before we get onto that, you've there's so much to take from this conversation already. But I want to get onto the human element, because it sounds like you're Wonder Woman, Superwoman, doing everything right for everyone else. How do you cope with it? I mean, we've spoken quite some in the previous podcast to this. We got quite deep into like,
yeah, what success looked like for you,
and how do you cope with the stresses, and how do you like live a happy life? How do you balance everything?
Okay, so I would share something with the listeners that probably a lot of people don't realise. 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with mantle cell lymphoma, which is a rare form of blood cancer that there is no cure for. So I've had some chemo, I've had some treatment, I'm in remission, but I know it's coming back. I just don't know when. It might be in 2 years, it might be in 4 years, it might be in 10. But what it has taught me is to be really, really resilient. It doesn't matter what life throws at you, you take the positives from it, you pick yourself up and you keep going forward. And I think I've always been very strong-minded. I've always been very positive. I've always been open-minded. I love what I do. I absolutely love what I do. So I think my mindset and my thoughts and my priorities have changed. And to answer your question, Leo, success for me is being able to inspire the people that I work with, to be able to give them the tools, coach them to be the best versions of themselves.
Just seeing the development of other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I can see that in some of the staff members that we have. Hannah, I think, is a great example to use. I know you've met Hannah.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Just giving her the tools and the confidence to believe in herself and help her go down that journey. So I think if you'd asked me this question 6 years ago, it would have been different. But
What would it have been then?
I think success for me would have been a little bit more driven, not financially, but more selfishly on what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now I don't look at it like that. It's not about me. It's about the team. It's about them. It's about being able to give them the support and the coaching to be the best.
And how good are you at switching off from work when you're at home?
I read.
About work?
I read.
That business.
I'm pretty good. I am pretty good. I do have 3 grandchildren, which fill my weekends and my spare time. I absolutely love.
Keeps you very busy.
Keeps me very busy. They're great. I love them to bits. They certainly bring the youth back out in me, that's for sure.
That's quite an incredible answer to that question. Do you feel the stress? Do you ever feel overwhelmed?
No.
Really?
No. It's very, I'm not saying it never happened. There have been moments when I feel stressed because I don't feel I'm in control, because I'm trying to do something and everything else is going wrong. But it's a very rare thing.
And do you feel like, is that because the environment in the business and the culture is such a way that you've prevented a lot of the high stress problems before they've perhaps even come? Because if you look at like a lot of the stress, it could be an unhappy customer, it could be unhappy staff, it could be all of these things that. Do you think it's the environment you've put yourself in that you've created that allows you to switch off? And
I think it is, to be honest. I think some of it is. I do also believe, though, that there is, whatever happened, there's always a solution. And I think through being ill has made me realise that it doesn't matter how much shit gets thrown at you, there's always a solution. There's always a positive. There's always an outcome. Doesn't mean the end of the world.
And I'm very good at, one of my, I think, strengths is instantly accepting something immediately. So the minute you get some news, it's like, well, that's happened now. So, you know.
I like to really chew on it. I like to fester on a problem and not accept it. I'm terrible at it. Really
But it
bad.
doesn't change, does it? It doesn't change. And being ill certainly makes you realise that. And I can remember now walking out of that hospital with my husband, having been told I've got a form of blood cancer, and sitting in a coffee shop, because this was quite soon after COVID. So they were still quite restricted at the hospitals of where you could go. And we were sat in this coffee shop. And I'm just sitting there thinking, I just need to press the pause button. I just need the world to stop for 5 minutes. I just need to digest this information.
Take this in, yeah.
But it doesn't. And it was very much like, it is what it is. I can't change it. I can't go back and, nothing that I did as a lifestyle made this happen. It just is what it is.
I think if you can be an it is what it is person, then yeah, that's
an incredible mindset, though.
Yeah.
Especially given
that
the circumstances.
Yeah.
But did it change you as a person?
I don't think it's changed me as a person. It's definitely changed my priorities. I'm definitely more selfish in a way that I won't do the things I don't want to do, which my husband finds very frustrating. So, we were on a farm, so I used to spend a lot of my time helping him, whereas now I'm like, no, I don't want to do it.
Grandkids instead.
I've got grandkids. I want to spend my time with them. I want to go out with my girlfriends. I want to do things that I enjoy doing. Which, it is what it is, I do love my job. I do want to come to work. Do I work at home? I do on occasion work at home, but that's my choice. I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You are quite inspirational, you know that, don't you?
No, I don't, but thank you for saying.
And you are to me, and you're going to be to so many people as well. And I think that what you've done, what I've seen of you, I knew you were obviously poorly, but what you've just said is news to me. And seeing your journey within the motor trade, whilst now knowing that, is even more phenomenal, because you give up so much of your time for the benefit of the trade, and it is truly selfless as well, because you have no benefit.
No.
There is no benefit. Like you'll see a lot of people get up on stage, and you see a lot of people do what they do, and there's always some sort of benefit. The time you give to the IAAF, and I think in the motor trade as we are now, where it's a real shame that we don't have more female leaders within the industry, and I think that the industry is crying out for more people like you, really, and given. I mean,
my thought is, if I can just help one person do a better job, or be a better leader, or be a better manager, or believe in themselves a little bit more, then I've done my job. That's success to me.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think, considering that you're the first woman guest that we have on this podcast, and hopefully not the last, and I'm really hoping to have you back at some point, because I could just talk to you all day. I think women in the motor trade, it's a really difficult one for a man to speak about this subject, because I don't want to speak on behalf of women at all, but I'd like to, whatever we can do to help that situation. And I'd love more female guests on this podcast. If you're listening and you feel like you want to come and have a chat, then please get in touch. But it feels like there's a movement. It feels like it's getting better. Certainly within all of our businesses, we have women across the entire business, and in all levels of the business. And how do we inspire more women to come into this industry? And I'm not necessarily just talking as a technician. I'm talking about all levels within business.
It's a difficult question to answer, because I think some of it is how the women feel themselves. I do think there's a little bit of imposter syndrome from women, and I did feel it myself years ago. How you guys or how anybody can help someone get over that, I'm not really sure. It is a difficult question. There've been, we spoke earlier, there's been so many stories that I've heard from women who have been dismissed at trade shows, not asked why they're there, just disregarded, women that get spoken over because no one believes that they know what they're talking about. And I don't think it's just our trade. I think it's any trade. And I think the more women that come forward and have their say and do things like this, it's just going to encourage more women to believe in themselves and trust that actually I do know what I'm doing. And it's, there's things like, I know obviously at the blend you've got Jen and I think, other women speakers. Just encourage them to take part. And it's scary. You and I have both done it. It's scary getting up there on stage in front of a few hundred people and saying your piece.
It's scary just to put your neck. just to stand up from the crowd, though. Do you know what I mean? Never mind. Getting on stage is like end
just
game.
Answer a question in the crowd.
Yeah.
But I think as an audience member, if you like, don't be judgmental because it is hard to do. And yes, the more you do it, the more you get out of your comfort zone, it becomes more comfortable. But I think it doesn't help because people sit there and listen to you and then they judge you and they talk about you and they disagree with you. Well, we're all entitled to disagree and have our own opinion, but you don't have to voice that. And just encourage anybody, whatever sex, to do things like that because it's great. Because, we're in this together, all of us. If we can't learn from each other and help each other out, then we're proper in trouble, aren't we? But with regard to women, it is difficult. I think some of it does have to come from the women themselves. They do have to get over that imposter syndrome and they do have to believe that.
How do you get over that? Because I know some of the best business leaders that I know are women. But there's a big difference between running a business and then deciding that you're going to try and inspire other people to.
I think some of it's a mindset. You have to believe that what you have and what you know and what you can share will be valuable to someone else. And even if it's just one other person, that's one other person that you've helped.
Yeah. It's a tricky one.
It is a tricky one. And I don't know the answer.
It's a real shame, isn't it? But,
it is.
So this podcast is 100% a platform for women to come and speak on and tell some amazing, like I said, I can pick out plenty of names of people that I'd love to come on this podcast, and perhaps we should be more proactive in reaching out.
Reaching out,
because
like I said to you earlier, I think men and women, a lot of people want to be reached out to rather than kind of saying yes, I'll come on.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing actually. A lot of people, if you ask, will probably be able to coerce them into doing it because they're probably thinking, I'd like to, but I don't know if I've got the confidence. So they don't put themselves forward. But if you actually directly approach them and said, we'd love you to come on.
Get them in a headlock and
and that is what imposter syndrome is, isn't it?
It is. It's just not believing that you've got the ability to do it. So go out there and ask them. You know who you want to have on here, Alex.
Yeah, I do actually. And I think coming back round to a more practical women in business, and if you're a sort of garage owner now and you're perhaps, we discussed this earlier, you're perhaps looking for that next position, and you are immediately going down a technical route. So let's say we're saying a workshop controller or a service advisor or someone in marketing or whatever it is. Think about the core attributes and qualities of that person as opposed to the knowledge of the person. Because if you're going down a technical knowledge route for a service advisor, then you are eliminating immediately 99.99% of women, because the truth is women technicians are very few and far between.
Yeah.
And for us in Lindley's, and I know in DAC and CCM, those female front of house members of staff are exceptional. Certainly in our business, some of our highest performing, just forget what sex they are, some of our highest performing people are the women on those front counters.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, we've got some really great women in our business.
Yeah, and I guess the messaging is that just don't limit yourself to technical knowledge. Open that up, and you can. There are even courses out there now, aren't there? I mean, James Dillon's running a technical for non-technical. I think it's James who's running one, and
LKQ do one as well.
LKQ is plenty of other trainers, so they can learn the technical knowledge, but actually those front of house people skills and approachability and the disarming skill. If you've got that young woman coming into a garage and there's just a load of blokes on that front counter, I mean, the reality of that situation is that can be quite daunting. Whereas a woman can immediately diffuse that situation as well. And it shouldn't be the reality, but I think it is a reality. So
And it is about getting the right person to fit the role and to fit your business role and your business module. The training you can give, the technical training you can give them, the training on the GMS you can give them. It's about having the right person on the bus.
Yeah, it's what's more important to the business is we're selling a customer experience, aren't we? Now, not a technical whatever.
yeah,
So,
they might, or someone without that technical knowledge may order the wrong part every now and again. But if they've got
as long
that,
as they don't do it more than 3 times, then
yeah, that's all right. Yeah, but you can't put a price on that customer experience. You might have someone who's technically absolutely brilliant, but really bad, not approachable, bad customer service.
This is male or female. Not
Both, yeah,
Yeah,
100%,
yeah,
of course. Yeah. Okay. I think that pretty much wraps up then, unless there's anything else you want to bring up or anything you want to ask us.
I don't think so. We haven't touched on data, which I think every single listener
yeah.
will be expecting
Yeah.
to hear from us, but
Yeah,
we'll
we
be here
could.
another hour.
Yeah.
We was here an hour before we hit the record button, weren't we?
Well, yeah, we're approaching an hour and a half. I think you know what what we need to do is
chew the fat
we
on
need
data.
to chew the fat on data,
Yeah.
because you're going to get the people who are going to be scrambling to listen, and you'll get people who are going to have a nosebleed listening to it. So I think the deep dive on data is I think, given how long we've been speaking for already, is an episode for the future.
Yeah,
But
we've got to sort of show some live examples as well, wouldn't it? As well with that, maybe.
we can go into some depth, and I think if we speak about it for 10 minutes now, we're not going to do it.
We're not going to give it
any
justice, are we?
no.
No.
Yeah.
This is an 8-hour round trip for you.
It is, yeah.
Wow.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. I can't tell you how much I love the work that you're doing in all areas. You are genuinely an inspiring person.
Thank you.
Just keep up the fantastic work, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your knowledge.
Yeah, it's been great to chat. It's the first time we've probably spoke to each other. So yeah, no, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been great. I've loved it.
Good, thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. As usual, please subscribe if you haven't, and give us any feedback. And if you've got any questions as well, we'll be happy to take some questions and get some answers for you. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.